Okay, Sunday, 14th of September, 2025, so Adrian's daily vlog, sharing smart stuff mentioned now. Sanity check. There's a very interesting concept I came across through some clients of mine in the tech space. This nice little concept of sanity check. Essentially, it's doubling down on the references, checking everything, make sure everything is coherent and everything is logical, can be referenced, backed up, duplicated, as in done again on demand and beyond. Essentially, we're double checking that this is indeed a fact and not just hyperbole, opinion, you name it. And that's powerful because we can then take all kinds of concepts, ideas, theories, you name it, and do a sanity check on it, essentially double checking the references, making sure this is indeed correct, checking the numbers, we could say. That's powerful because when we have ideas and concepts and plans, we need to do a coherence test on everything. Does this idea make sense through different lenses? For example, going in nature, does it make sense through an exercise lens, a dietitian lens, an adventure lens, through an anthropology lens, a psychology lens, through the lens of, say, being active, things like that? Yes, it makes sense because X, Y, Z. Yes, it makes sense because X, Y, Z. A social lens. Yes, it makes sense because X, Y, Z. And of course, some of them will have different varying levels of support. This makes sense through an exercise lens. Great, as opposed to the gym, because we're physically moving as opposed to floating on a treadmill. But through a social lens, to meet people, less so, because it's not the primary reason to be in nature. The primary reason, you could say, is adventure and fresh air and exercise. So it makes sense, it's coherent, and we do a sanity check. Well, let's take that idea and say, well, how do you know? Where's the evidence? Show me the evidence, essentially. Prove it, prove the numbers. That. And one thing I've kind of stumbled upon is everything we do, we want to do a sanity check to make sure that what we're doing is as optimized as possible. It's the right idea, it's the correct thing. Because one thing I've interestingly stumbled across as well elsewhere is that we need to be constantly optimizing what we're doing in light of new ideas and information. I was watching an interesting podcast and they were referencing Ray Dalio. And the podcast was saying that Ray Dalio said that his strategy in investing now is X. But in 24 hours or 6 months, it could be Y, because you would learn something completely different, a new idea, new fact, new concept, new theory, new law of physics, new law of finance, and that can change the entire mental model, the entire strategy, the entire chessboard, the entire map of the territory. That makes sense. And then you take these ideas, these things, and do a sanity check on them to double check, does that make sense coherently through different lenses? Where's the evidence? Show me the numbers. Prove it. Where's the proofs? Otherwise, we're just running around with far too many theories and ideas and too conceptual, as opposed to this is proven, here's the evidence, therefore do this, that. That's powerful. And we need to be constantly recalibrating in light of new ideas. And I did a video about this as well, actually. It's Dragnet, taking new ideas, information all the time, because we don't know which idea, which search, which prompt, which result, which keyword, which heuristic can change the entire mental model, can change everything on a dime like that. That's powerful. And that way then, we fundamentally, at a fundamental level, have a higher definition view of reality, meaning we have fewer blind spots, we have fewer cognitive biases, we are liable to make fewer mistakes, meaning we achieve our goals with less friction and quicker and easier and less and more direct. That's very powerful. That's priceless. It's so powerful, it's priceless. And because ultimately we're saving time. At a real meta level, we're saving time by doing the most optimized, most sanity checked strategy and concept, meaning this is as close as reality as we can be. This idea is correct, therefore do that. So for example, you're on top of a roof, and you know, because you've sanity checked it many times, maybe instinctively, that if you jump off, you're going to crash, go down, you're not going to fly. So that, therefore, you know, logically and instinctively, don't jump off the roof, for example. Likewise, you could say, well, we're going to go into nature, therefore we're going to need the right kind of shoes, boots. Okay, through what lens, through well, through a hygiene lens, through a mountain lens, through a terrain lens, to say, right, we need to be more adapted, literally to the environment in this case, otherwise we're making too many errors. Morning. So that idea itself wants to be sanity checked, to double check it's coherent with reality. Powerful. That way we make fewer mistakes, as I said earlier. Fewer mistakes, less friction, we achieve our goals better. Very nice, very, very powerful. So we could say then, at a meta level, every idea, every concept, every prompt, every idea needs to be sanity checked and checked for coherence through multiple different lenses. And we can go deeper to say, well, we need to do a coherence check on this idea through opposing lenses. So we could say, well, I'm here in nature exercising. Well, what through a lens of gaining, let's say gaining body mass, does this idea make sense? It kind of does through this kind of ums and ahs. Oh, okay, what about through a lens of not getting injured? So should I go to the hills and go in nature? Well, you shouldn't. But actually, if you take certain precautions, it kind of makes sense. That way, interestingly, you can square the circle between two almost seemingly, on prima facie, on first view, opposing ideas and say, well, actually, that makes sense. And then that's where the cognitive dissonance comes into play with regards to, well, if you don't want to break a leg, why are you in nature? Because you're taking certain precautions, hedges, insurance, things like that. So therefore, things are less likely to happen. And we only discover those hedges by digging deeper and deeper and deeper, as in the calibration is so high, there's so high fidelity, so high definition that we can predict all kinds of things that could happen, and we have protection and hedges against it. The shoes, the jacket, the coat, the battery, the water, etc., etc., etc. Protection, ultimately, at a real meta level. Efficiency, being calibrated to every single kind of possibility. And that's beautiful, because then I did a video about this as well, becoming the demon, where you know so many facts about the world, you can predict the future, and then you can use that knowledge to hedge in the concept of, in the idea of, if this happens, that, if this happens, that, if this happens, that, if this happens, that. So you're protected against so many eventualities, and the bell curve of possibilities, you become arguably untouchable. Wow. Because you're thinking not just 2 steps ahead, not just 20, but 200 steps ahead, and your steps are sanity checked and checked for coherence, so they're based on reality, not just based on theory or abstract or just like umming and ahhing and guessing, but based on reality. So, for example, hills, rocks, dirt, I've got the correct boots on, but wearing those boots over there will be a bad idea, or those shoes, too flimsy, and wearing sandals, not a good idea, but wearing mountain boots, perfect, perfect, perfect. That way, the chance of problems happening, slipping, collapses to near zero. Therefore, the thing gets achieved and a good time is had. Wow, powerful, powerful, powerful. A very, very nice, slick way to go through life and strategizing and recalibrating. Beautiful, beautiful. But otherwise, Adrian's daily vlog, sharing smart stuff men should know. Subscribe for more, and you will see me tomorrow.